see if this can be resolved in a peaceful fashion. And so this notion that somehow we have a choice to make in the next week or 2 weeks or month or 2 months is not borne out by the facts. And the argument that we've made to the Israelis is that we have made an unprecedented commitment to their security. There is an unbreakable bond between our two countries. But one of the functions of friends is to make sure that we provide honest and unvarnished advice in terms of what is the best approach to achieve a common goal, particularly one in which we have a stake. This is not just an issue of Israeli interest. This is an issue of U.S. interests. It's also not just an issue of consequences for Israel if action is taken prematurely. There are consequences to the United States as well. And so I do think that any time we consider military action, that the American people understand there's going to be a price to pay. Sometimes it's necessary, but we don't do it casually. You know, when I visit Walter Reed, when I sign letters to families that haven't whose loved ones have not come home, I am reminded that there is a cost. Sometimes we bear that cost, but we think it through. We don't play politics with it. When we have in the past, when we haven't thought it through, and it gets wrapped up in politics, we make mistakes. And typically it's not the folks who are popping off who pay the price. It's these incredible men and women in uniform and their families who pay the price. And as a consequence, I think it's very important for us to take a careful, thoughtful, sober approach to what is a real problem. And that's what we've been doing over the last 3 years. That's what I intend to keep doing.
Sir, I'm so sorry. If I could just quickly follow up. You didn't,
Jake.
you might not be beating the drums of war, but you did very publicly say, we've got Israel's back. What does that mean?
What it means is that historically we have always cooperated with Israel with respect to the defense of Israel, just like we do with a whole range of other allies, just like we do with Great Britain, just like we do with Japan. And that broad statement, I think, is confirmed when you look at what we've done over the last 3 years on things like Iron Dome that prevents missiles from raining down on their small towns along border regions of Israel that potentially land on schools or children or families. And we're going to continue that unprecedented security commitment. It was not a military doctrine that we were laying out for any particular military action. It was a restatement of our consistent position that the security of Israel is something I deeply care about, and that the deeds of my administration over the last 3 years confirms how deeply we care about it. That's a commitment we've made. Jackie. Where's Jackie? There you are.
With the news this morning that the U.S. and its allies are returning to the table or taking up Iran's offer to talk again, more than a year after those talks broke up in frustration, is this Iran's last chance to negotiate an end to this nuclear question? And you said 3 years ago, nearly 3 years ago, in a similar one-on-one meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu, that the time for talk, by the end of that year, 2009, you would be considering whether Iran was negotiating in good faith. And you said at that time that we're not going to have talks forever. So here we are nearly 3 years later. Is this it? And did you think you would be here 3 years after those first talks?
You know, there is no doubt that over the last 3 years, when Iran has engaged in negotiations, there has been hemming and hawing and stalling and avoiding the issues in ways that the international community has concluded were not serious. And my expectations, given the consequences of inaction for them, the severe sanctions that are now being applied, the huge toll it's taking on their economy, the degree of isolation that they're feeling right now, which is unprecedented, they understand that the world community means business. To resolve this issue will require Iran to come to the table and discuss in a clear and forthright way how to prove to the international community that the intentions of their nuclear program are peaceful. They know how to do that. This is not a mystery. And so it's going to be very important to make sure that on an issue like this, there are complexities. It obviously has to be methodical. I don't expect a breakthrough in a first meeting, but I think we will have a pretty good sense fairly quickly as to how serious they are about resolving the issue. And there are steps that they can take that would send a signal to the international community and that are verifiable, that would allow them to be in compliance with international norms, in compliance with international mandates, abiding by the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and provide the world an assurance that they're not pursuing a nuclear weapon. They know how to do it. And the question is going to be whether in these discussions they show themselves moving clearly in that direction. Ed Henry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to follow up on Israel and Iran because you have said repeatedly you have Israel's back. So I wonder why 3 years in office you have not visited Israel as president. And related to Iran and Israel, you have expressed concern about this loose talk of war, as you call it, driving up gas prices further. Your critics will say on Capitol Hill that you want gas prices to go higher because you have said before that will wean the American people off fossil fuels onto renewable fuels. How do you respond to that?
Ed, just from a political perspective, do you think the President of the United States going into re-election wants gas prices to go up higher? Is there anybody here who thinks that makes a lot of sense? Look, here's the bottom line with respect to gas prices. I want gas prices lower because they hurt families. Because I meet folks every day who have to drive a long way to get to work, and them filling up this gas tank gets more and more painful, and it's a tax out of their pocketbooks, out of their paychecks. And a lot of folks are already operating on the margins right now. And it's not good for the overall economy, because when gas prices go up, consumer spending oftentimes pulls back. And we're in the midst right now of a recovery that is starting to build up steam, and we don't want to reverse it. What I have also said about gas prices is that there is no silver bullet, and the only way we're going to solve this problem over the medium and long term is with an all-of-the-above strategy that says we're going to increase production, which has happened. We are going to make sure that we are conserving energy. That's why we doubled fuel efficiency standards on cars, which will save consumers about $1.7 trillion and take about 12 billion barrels of oil offline, which will help to reduce prices. And we're going to develop clean energy technologies that allow us to continue to use less oil. And we've made progress. I mean, the good news is 2010, first time in a decade that our oil imports were actually below 50%, and they've kept on going down. And we're going to keep on looking at every strategy we can to, yes, reduce the amount of oil that we use while maintaining our living standards and maintaining our productivity and maintaining our economic growth. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that consumers aren't hurt by it. Now, there's some short-term steps that we're looking at with respect to, for example, there are certain potential bottlenecks in refineries around the country that we've been concerned about. We're concerned about what's happening in terms of production around the world. It's not just what's happening in the Gulf. You've had, for example, in Sudan, some oil that's been taken offline that's helping to restrict supply. So we're going to look at a whole range of measures, including, by the way, making sure that my Attorney General is paying attention to potential speculation in the oil markets. I've asked him to reconstitute a task force that's examining that. But we go through this every year. We've gone through this for 30 years. And if we are going to be competitive, successful, and make sure families are protected over the long term, then we've got to make sure that we've got a set of options that reduce our overall dependence on oil. Now, with respect to Israel, I'm not the first president who has been unable, because of a whole range of issues, not to visit Israel as president in their first term. I visited Israel twice as senator, once right before I became president. The measure of my commitment to Israel is not measured by a single visit. The measure of my commitment to Israel is seen in the actions that I've taken as President of the United States, and it is indisputable that I've had Israel's back over the last 3 years. Amr Madani.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Do you believe Rush Limbaugh's apology to the Georgetown lawsuit was sufficient and heartfelt? Do you agree with the decision of the growing number of sponsors that have decided to drop his show, stop supporting his show? And has there been a double standard on this issue? Liberal commentators have made similarly provocative or distasteful statements, and there hasn't been such an outrage.
You know, I'm not going to comment on what sponsors decide to do. I'm not going to comment on either the economics or the politics of it. I don't know what's in Rush Limbaugh's heart, so I'm not going to comment on the sincerity of his apology. What I can comment on is the fact that all decent folks can agree that the remarks that were made don't have any place in the public discourse. And the reason I called Ms. Fluke is because I thought about Malia and Sasha, and one of the things I want them to do as they get older is to engage in issues they care about, even ones I may not agree with them on. I want them to be able to speak their mind in a civil and thoughtful way. And I don't want them attacked or called horrible names because they're being good citizens. And I wanted Sandra to know that that I thought her parents should be proud of her, and that we want to send a message to all our young people that being part of a democracy involves argument and disagreements and debate, and we want you to be engaged, and there's a way to do it that doesn't involve you being demeaned and insulted, particularly when you're a private citizen. All right. Jessica Yellen.
Gilmore apologized for what he said about Republicans.
Jessica.
Apologize for what they said about that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Top Democrats have said that Republicans on a similar issue are engaged in a war on women. Some top Republicans say it's more like Democrats are engaged in a war for the women's vote. As you talk about loose talk of war in another arena, and women this could raise concerns among women, do you agree with the chair of your Democratic National Committee that there is a war on women?
Here's what I think. Women are going to make up their own mind in this election about who is advancing the issues that they care most deeply about. One of the things I've learned being married to Michelle is I don't need to tell her what it is that she thinks is important. And there are millions of strong women around the country who are going to make their own determination about a whole range of issues.